Okay, today we're going to cover the is-ought problem in philosophy. So this was first proposed by David Hume, an 18th century Scottish philosopher. This is a paraphrase of his work, A Treatise of Human Nature. I noticed that in moral arguments, writers suddenly switch from describing what is to saying what ought to be, without explaining how they make that jump. This jump isn't justified just by reason or facts alone. So that's a paraphrase because the original version is written in quite complicated and long English. Here's a formal version of the argument. Descriptive statements, is statements, describe how the world actually is. For example, people often lie, or water boils at 100 degrees at sea level. Normative statements, or ought statements, prescribe how the world should be. For example, people ought not to lie, or we should keep water clean. Philosophers and moralists often move from premises that are purely descriptive to conclusions that are normative, without explicitly stating or justifying the normative premise that bridges the gap. Therefore, any valid moral argument must contain at least one normative premise to justify moving from facts to values. You cannot infer moral obligations only from facts. So he's basically saying that to link an objective statement to a subjective should claim, we need some kind of conditional or subjective premise in between. To explain this, let's first look at a basic syllogism. All men are mortal, I am a man, therefore I am mortal. This is probably the simplest syllogism you can see, and if you look at all the premises, you can see a pattern. They're all objective claims. However, adding subjective premises can cause problems. For example, like this. My car is red, therefore it is good. You can't link an objective claim directly to a subjective conclusion. It doesn't logically follow. Good is an opinion, the car is red is a fact. To make this valid, we need to add another premise. My car is red, I like cars, therefore it is good. This now logically follows. The first is objective, the second is an objective claim about a subjective opinion, and the third is a subjective opinion. You can also format it this way. My car is red. If you like red cars, then it is good. So David Hume's observation is simply applying this rule to any moral claim or should claim. For example, you need to eat food, therefore you should eat food. This doesn't logically follow, so you need something like this. You need to eat food, you want to live, therefore you should eat. So any should claim doesn't logically follow what is or what exists. You have to have something in between for it to be logically valid. So this definitely does cause problems for moral arguments, because what we see in the world is simply what is. How do we get what we should do and how we should live from just what exists? It's very difficult. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have morality in society. It simply means that we can't get it from what exists. That is, unless you can somehow prove that objective morality exists in the world. And in thousands of years of philosophy, no one's been able to do that. But anyway, on YouTube, if you would like to communicate with creators, you can leave a comment. If you want to express your thoughts, you should leave a comment.